So our next and last speaker is Odette Casamayor-Cisneros, is an associate professor of Latin American and Caribbean Cultural Studies at the University of Pennsylvania and the inaugural Roberto C. Guiseta Distinguished Presidential Fellow at the University of Miami's Cuban Heritage Collection. She's a published author and is currently working on 2 new books. One is entitled In Black Ink, Writings from the Flesh of a Black Cuban Woman, and the second one is titled On Being Blacks, Self-Identification Processes and the Counter-Hegemonic Knowledge in Contemporary Cuban Culture Production. So without further ado, Odette.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I am extremely grateful to the ICA, particularly to Jean and Donna, for organizing this incredible week that we had during the seminar. And of course, secondly, I want to thank my students, well, these students. We shared, this opportunity has been unique and it's unforgettable as sharing our experiences and our perspectives on Cuban art has been, and Cuban history and society has been, it really has been a unique experience. And of course, thank you to all of you for being here today and under this weather, tropical weather that we don't know what is disturbing us. So, yes. So, who am I, right? Beyond the great presentation that Jean made of me. So, it is said that I am Black, that I am a Cuban, and that I am also a Caribbean and a Latin American and Latina woman, that I am a mother, a daughter, I have been a wife, ex-wife, the girlfriend, lover, etc., the professor and the writer, you see. It is assumed that through these classifications, I am recognized in the spaces where my dark body bursts in. There are all presumed identities, and yes, it is said that I am Black, but the word that the word does not cover the whole meaning of being a descendant of enslaved Africans in the Americas. And as a descendant of commodities, rather than properly consider human beings, I am a miscalculation in Western history. Blacks of the Americas are the unexpected result of the most lucrative business conceived down to the detail to deprive us of our humanity, use our bodies as work instruments until exhaustion to the point that they could be tossed aside without incurring any losses for their owners. The future of black people was unthinkable, not only within the project of slavery, but more broadly within modern humanism. So the main question for us is, how then to exist as a Black person in a world that Black bodies has built, cleaned up and repaired, yet we cannot freely inhabit? This question leads my remarks today in my endeavor to uncover how precisely my existence as a Black Cuban woman and the existence of all Black Cubans have been incorporated into the national body by the architects of the idea of the Cuban nation, and how it continues to be strategically placed within the fiction of what it is called Cubanness. But Black Cuban women can exist, and we indeed exist, without forcibly being in a constant position of dependency on the idea of Cubanness, an identity curved by Euro-patriarchal conceptualization of nation, from the Euro-patriarchal conceptualization of nationhood, from which someone like me, a Black Cuban woman, is, as Sylvia Winter has discussed throughout her work, ontologically absent, only existing as a creature that is supposed to be always on her way to perfecting herself, on her way to becoming always someone else than herself. Maybe wider, more civilized, cultivated, but always from the Eurocentric perspective. I am bringing here some meditations on how to chronicle and embrace our blurred identities, blurred origins as women descendants of enslaved Africans. How to articulate the narratives of our present being and imagine tomorrows with us at the center of it. How to be without getting lost in a windmill of identities that fail to fully apprehend who we are. Delving into these issues, I will present not excerpts, but some elements from my new book, Birthing Ourselves, Black Womanhood and Epistemological Marronage in Latin America and the Caribbean. I will particularly discuss my book's main working concepts through using art, of course. The first concept is Black womanhood self-birth, which is the ontological self-invention of the Black woman when she denies the imposed roles and defines herself, creates her own identity, says who she is, and lives accordingly. Then the second, epistemological marronage, which is the agency and power of the Black woman when she escapes the epistemological plantation, that is, when she refuses to be what the hetero-patriarchal systems has dictated she should be. Then, once she managed to abandon the hetero-patriarchal epistemological order, she can create herself at her will in the uncharted territories of her internal wilderness. Then we have monstrosity. Because Black women who give birth to themselves, that is, that self-emancipate and self-create themselves, have been always demonized. Theirs is the demonic ground, identified also by Sylvia Wynter as they cannot understand, as they cannot be understood under the hetero-patriarchally hegemonic reasoning. They are deemed to be unreasonable, of another world. And I want to start with this picture, which is a screenshot from my phone. You have to know what it is. I'm not going to make the publicity here. So here, what we have is the gaze of my great-great-grandmother advancing from the screen, penetrating me each time that I open my phone. Her portrait was taken in the late 19th century or in the early 20th century. We couldn't say for sure. No one in our family ever could. For, as in all family of descendants of enslaved Africans, uncertainty dominates our history. Uncertainty is actually our own certainty. Because where precisely in Africa were our ancestors abducted? What were their names at that time? Who did they live? How did they live before they were forced across the Atlantic to begin their new life as no women and no men? There are no names, places, dates. We are left only with the memory of the flesh, which goes out into the world through our gazes. That is why I am certain that the portrait of my great-great-grandmother was taken so more than a century later, she can scrutinize me every time I turn on my phone. So that's why I have put. So that's why I have incorporated those, included those, these excerpts from Margot Jefferson's last book, Constructing the Nervous System. So she, my great-grandmother, she's behind my writing, as all our mothers and grandmothers are behind the creativity of all Black women in the Americas. It cannot be otherwise. And let's take, for instance, this piece by Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons, replenishing, in which Santeria liturgic necklaces function as the unbreakable links between the mother and the daughter. So on the right, you have Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons and her mother. Here, the ancestral strength quietly flows, enabling the survival through generations. The necklaces in the hands of the two women refer to orishas, or deities from Santeria, the Cuban religion of Yoruban origin, but you were here in the previous talk, so I have nothing to say. And they are intertwined, red and black, attributed to Elegua, the unpredictable orisha, who opens and closes human paths, guaranteeing, however, a hidden universal unity. And also we have the blue, white, and yellow necklaces, alluding to Yemaya and Oshun, the goddesses of the oceans and the rivers. The necklaces create an umbilical cord, keeping the two women together as much as separating them, forging an image of the tortuous, knotted, but permanent intergenerational continuity between Black women. That ancestral connection is also recreated in umbilical cord, where a cord connecting different female wombs, generators of life, serve as a thread linking feminine stories in Magda's own family. Again, the red and black colors on the cord refer to Elegua, of course. In all these works, and throughout Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons's production, there is no permanence, but transcendence. And this transcendence, brought by a powerful matrilineal energy, allows the artist to tend bridges between her different realities and histories, between Africa, the land of her ancestors, Cuba, which is Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons' birthplace, and the United States, where the artist lives and works since the 1990s. These works expose the vital principle of the Afro-diasporic experience, the concept of a vital principle of the Afro-diasporic experience, the concept of ancestralidade, which is actually wasn't the previous one, yeah, here, which was thoroughly studied by Afro-Brazilian scholar Leda Maria Martins, in which she presents ancestralidade, or ancestrality, we can say probably in English. I wouldn't use ancestry, so I would like to invent ancestrality maybe, as the backbone, and she presents ancestrality, as you can read here, as the backbone of the Afro-Brazilian life. And we can say, in general, the backbone of Afro-diasporic worldviews and creativity. It is impossible to talk about ancestrality in contemporary Cuban art, of course, without referring to the work of Belkis Ayón. Through her continuous creation of the recreation of the Abacuaz myth of Sican, the woman sacrificed so the man could recover the sacred voice of Tansé. So it's always a question of voice. So we have to kill a woman so the man can keep a voice. The genetic, so Tansé, which was the genetic fish within the Abacuaz society. Ayón incorporated ancestrality as a main feature of her work, in her work. The artist was, however, moreover, completely aware of the spectral presence of Sican within herself, as she says here, she has said in an interview, Sican lives in me in constant restlessness, always looking for an exit, a solution, a way to escape. She acknowledged that restlessness is key. Restlessness is key in this approach of ancestralidad, because the ancestors are not passively connecting us or connected to us. They are living through us in our practice, in our daily, everyday practice. Thus, for Belkis Ayón, his experience, his ancestrality is experienced as a sort of restlessness that she tried to express, or from which she tried to liberate herself through her art. Restlessness is particularly expressed in Ayón's work through the gaze of her figures. It is the same. Let's leave it here. It is the gaze that comes to my present for in my own case, to my present from my past. Each time that I look at my great-grandmother's portrait in my phone. In Belkis Ayón's artwork, the gaze is represented through hollow spaces within the bodies. It conveys a deliberately enigmatic expression, since for the artist, such blank spaces indicate mystery, an emptiness that attracts the public, the spectator. What is hidden, what is not explicitly expressed, achieves greater importance in Belkis Ayón's compositions. One might therefore consider that these figures, lacking of particular attributes other than the expression suggested by their gestures or the secrecy transmitted by their blank look, prevent the formulation of identities of any sort, generic, racial, national, or cultural identifications. They overcome rigid and discursively expressible identities. In fact, these figures are mouthless. They cannot speak. Only a deep mystery surrounds and inhabits them, advancing from the works towards the viewer. Their eyes address the spectator, provoking, again, uneasiness. The very same restlessness that we identify in them is transferred to us. Restlessness, in sum, unifies us through Belkis Ayón's work. There is an unsettling anxiety that seizes our attention, functioning like a trampoline, a dizzying whirlwind without stable reference points to grasp on. And I also associate these minimalist silhouettes to the Iremes or Diablitos Abacuas. These anthropomorphic figures represented ancestral spirits with the head covered, so as you see here, this picture, with the head covered by, with a pointed cap, with only a pair of embroidered, actually, eyes. They can see and hear in the ceremony, they can see and hear, but cannot speak. They can only express themselves through their performance. This is during the Abacua ceremony. And in front of Belkis Ayón's colographs, nobody can avoid the confrontation to the uncanny. Nobody can hide It's just like being in those ceremonies in which, because they are the Iremes, los Diablitos, they are there to be certain that everything, the whole ceremony, is ruling accordingly, so in good way. So they are somehow they are they are keeping control of everything, even if they cannot speak, but they can see everything. And nobody can hide from them. So it's the same with Belkis Ayón's work. We cannot hide from these forces. We feel that our secrets are revealed by these gazes, which actually reminds me of the gazes of the Byzantine icons. And this is interesting because Belkis Ayón herself, she acknowledged her early fascination with the Russian Byzantine icons. And she said that in an interview with David Mateo, a Cuban critic. But also it brings me beyond the Byzantine icons. I think about the Nkisi in the Congo tradition that represents the gaze coming from another time, from eternity, scrutinizing the present, revealing its secrets, and of course, bien sûr, the Ireme Abakwa. So we come back to secrecy here because in the end, I insist, the secret that she is recreating is not the Abakwa secret, but our human sense of secrecy, which is in each of us, regardless if we are Abakwas or not, or if we are familiar with the Abakwa society or not. It is our secret what ultimately actually haunts us ourselves, incorporating us, drawing us into the scene represented, or more accurately, the world that she suggests in her works. It is in this sense that we are somehow like she's representing a trance and incorporating us within this trance, in which spectrality plays a central role as the figures merge with each other and with the organic and inorganic environment in which they are placed. And I want to emphasize here what she says about that particular piece, the second one, La Soga y el Fuego, which is reproduced here. So there is also a sense, and now I want to go to slowly go to the idea of marronage, because there is also a sense of being trapped in Ayón's holographs. We need to, she's always, so the constant need to find a solution, an exit, just like a cimarrona, just like a maroon. And in the case of Sican, particularly, the character of Sican is always dying and resurrecting, coming back from her death. Sican, and she does that in the ceremonies or in the liturgy through the voice of the drums. But in general, what she does, Belkis Ayón does is represented this constant return of a resurrection of Sican. So Sican, in some, rebirths. So it's again, and she gives birth to herself again and again. Yes, so I will continue now to addressing the questions of identification. Yes, here. I will be going back and forth between different artists. And I am going back to Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons because particularly with this very complicated work, it's actually a series of works. I'm just presenting here this one. So in the first, you cannot read it here, but the first piece says "Patria una trampa." This last one it says it reads "Identity could be a tragedy," right? So, and I have put them here in relationship with Stuart Hall's ideas on identification. Because we might ask ourselves, who is the Black woman with that impassible face and the naked torso painted in white, that asserts patria is a trap? No, in the first one, patria is a trap, patria una trampa, and that, and in the last one, identity could be a tragedy, which Campos-Pons's body, what she really is, appears in the piece covered by white substances, perhaps alluding to the European Enlightenment or the whiteness of the hegemonic hetero-patriarchal epistemology that dictates her identities. So, just one moment, something happened here. I'm missing one page, and no, I am not. Here it is. So in this triptych, her black skin is only shown in the second Polaroid, if you can realize. I will, oops. Okay. Where her face is surrounded by the sticks known in Cuba as garabatos. Non-translation to that. Which is a liturgic attribute of Elegua. But the garabato also is a work tool used to clear the weeds. It is, and we can assume, Elegua's instrument to create new paths into, again, the wilderness. And of course, garabatos might also have been priceless tools for our maroons ancestors when they escaped the plantation and created their own paths through the forest, self-emancipating and inventing new lives outside of bondage. Thus, Elegua and his garabatos convey, okay, let me go back, it's always a mess, me and, okay, magic. Okay, thus Elegua, I am not that person. Okay, thus Elegua and his garabatos convey in these pages by Magda Campos-Pons a message of liberation and the possibility of laboring in the creation of new forms of self-identification. Yes, we might then ask ourselves if it is this Black woman really a Black woman conforming to the concepts of Black, Cuban, and woman as they have been crafted in our societies? Or is she something on someone else? Maybe a human being invented and defined only by herself. Campos-Pons' interpretations of identity is puzzling. In her works, it appears as a tragic issue, as she writes in the last Polaroid, as a tragic issue, but there is also an urgent reference to the infinite movements of the body and culture, affecting us between here and there, allá. So, and I refer you to the title of the series, When I Am Not Here, Estoy Allá. And then another question, where exactly is here and where is allá? The displacement could be situated between Africa and the Americas, and then pointing towards the Afro-diasporic identity of the artist, but it also refers to the migratory experience from the Caribbean to the United States. Those are incessant travels across history, national boundaries, racial identities, cultures, languages, and ideologies which are exposed in Magda's body, powerfully resonating with Stuart Hall's words as he discussed the concept of identification. There is always too much or too little, an over-determination or a lack, but never a proper fit, a totality. In another piece, Elevata, Magda uses again her body to convey the ambiguity of identity. But unlike identity could be a tragedy, in this work, the body only suggests does not state any idea there is anything written. Nothing is explicit, much less fixed. Her body does not even offer an expression, gesture, or regard, because it turns its back to the spectator. As the artist once expressed, and I include in this slide, I know how powerful a body is just in being there. Similar questions of production similar questions animate the production of Cuban-American artist Juana Valdés, and I'm not going to talk a lot about her because she's present. So if I said something wrong, no, it's not going to happen, Juana. I am going to present your work, but not talking that much. Actually, we don't need to talk that much because it speaks for itself. But those questions I have been addressing right now are present throughout her work because migration and identification, and please, if I am saying something wrong, you let me know, it's fine. Constitute pivotal issues. So as we can witness in this immersive installation, rest assured. And I am going to try to do. Well, I think that now you understand why I have nothing to say. Oh? Okay. So the sea is not only the locus of a perilous migratory journey, sometimes fatal migratory journey, but also a side of memory. The ocean contains our stories as migrant bodies, as well as the stories of the forced displacement experienced by our ancestors. Everything lies at the bottom of the ocean, brought back and forth by the tides. Waters, how fundamental waters could be for us, islanders. In the installation, and I go back to Magdalena Campos-Pons. In the installation, spoken softly with Mama, The transparent irons on the floor seemed the islands or boats, an archipelago of memories that we cannot always recover. Because our Black memories are consistently absent from historical archives and canonic literary production. But these memories remain alive in our bodies, and those irons, disposed as little vessels on the floor, constitute symbols of our journeys and of the journeys of our ancestors. All that we are at the present is in constant conversation with our mothers and grandmothers, whose portraits are displayed by Magda on the iron boards, also reminiscent of vessels surrounding the piece. Among us circulate family stories woven into our everyday lives, in our labor, our joy, our games, our dances, our quietness, our dreams, stories crossing the artificial borders of time and space. Which is also the case, I'm back to Juana Valdés' works. We can talk about how she reinvents, again, let me know if I am wrong, how she reinvents history, recurring to objects, dresses, china pieces, family tales, etc. Just remember on the video that floating dress that in the previous video that remains as a haunting image. We can escape to that. So, but we are always that thing that or here in this order. So these are details of journey within, in which you have these little boats, como de parecen de papel, but they look like made out of paper, but actually are made out of china, right? Okay. But then we have this, concerning the objects, we have this other marvelous, it's also enchanting piece, Farewell to the Sea, which is, what you see there is, let me zoom. Oh yeah, we can do that. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's this beautiful, it's this beautiful white, very fragile white lace dress, which has these little fishing hooks and lead sinkers. No, so yeah, it's marvelous. Okay, thank you for your work, really. So in her production, Juana Valdés reconstitutes the archive, proposing a new one, in which the bodies cannot disappear as numbers, dates, historical facts. In some, the artist finds other ways of narrating herself, of inventing herself, again giving birth to herself through new narratives offered by herself and her community. And it is here that I want to bring another concept, another Afro-Brazilian concept, which is escrevivencia. And the concept has been penned by Afro-Brazilian writer Conceição Evaristo. It conceptualizes this particular form of creativity in which, by narrating our own experience, we are also narrating the stories of our mothers and ancestors, and also the experiences of our community. And the word escrevivencia comes from the Portuguese words escrever, that means writing, and vivencia, that means experience. But it is also, so beyond the use of escrevivencia, it is also necessary to first decide what truth to write. And more importantly, where to find it. Because is there any archive a traditional archive that contains the true story of the descendants of enslaved people in the Americas? No. In historical archives, particularly Black women, appear only as figures, case studies, and we are always violated, objectified, disposable, hypersexualized, and silenced. So we are even though with these absences, we are reluctant to consider ourselves without history. We have one, and it has not been conceived, but it has not been conceived by others. It's the story of our people. We have very little evidence of our ancestors' existence. There are scarce recordings or preserved testimonies. At most, we can mend, and there is this action of mending, no? That we can mend the fragments of this history of our families. Our history will not then be the history in capital that Europe has proclaimed as the only possible one, propping it up as the centuries slip away with archives about our African enslaved ancestors that they did not build, using data that they did not count either. But these Black women artists recreated that other hidden, silenced, obliterated history, a history reconstructed from the spectacular silencing of our existence. So I would like to discuss, well, you can read that, I'm not. I would like to discuss also some works by the Spain-based, if we have time, you'll have to let me know how much time do I have. I can come give up, okay, well, give up. If you are tired, my students know, you can circulate, no problem at all. I won't take it personal. Okay, I would like to discuss also some works by Spain-based artist Gertrudis Rivalta, who also uses the racial, the instances, the social to recreate the existence that occurs in and beyond the stereotypes of Blackness. And I opened my study of her work analyzing a piece from the series, Evans or Not Evans, This Is Not Exactly the Question. And as the title indicates, this series offers Rivalta's reinterpretation of Walker Evans' work. Just here. Perdón. Okay, I lost. 15, 16, 17. Bien. Really. So she is reinterpreting the photographic testimony, the Cuban photographic, the Walker Evans Cuban photographic testimony that is collected in the book Havana, 1933. The book of pictures was, it was trying to refer, it was referring to the critical situation in Cuba in the 1930s. But what Rivalta does is not just to take a picture of the picture. She paints copies of Evans's photos. Through painting, and there is all the manual work there, through painting, there is the work of the tracing hand added to that of the gaze of both Evans and Rivalta, which complicates even more the process of rereading the original photograph. In the 21st century, the Black Cuban woman paints the photos through which the American white and male Evans attempted to document the Cuban reality of the 1930s. Evans's lens was frequently in the book attracted by Black Cubans, so it is worth asking how Rivalta, as a descendant of those Black Cubans of the 1930s, may interpret Evans's gaze today. So Gertrudis Rivalta's Misanabian perspective brings to the present, in her own gaze, the Cubans photographed by Evans and Evans himself, who could have possibly been the photographed target the mulatta traditionally cut and fixed by the white gaze under the lens of artists and tourists, becomes now the scrutinizer, the black gaze over the famous white American artist's work. It would be also not worth noting that so the question here also is about who acts as the other in Rivalta's game. Are the others the Cubans seen by Evans and painted again by Rivalta, or is Evans the other? Or who should be examined here as the other? And the question laying is, who constructs the image and the identity? Through Rivalta's pictorial shiftiness, not only identity, but also otherness, as well as the very act of portraying and constructing the other, becomes performances. The title of the painting is extremely suggestive. Convivencia, with a thread, which means, with a hyphen, which means with life experience, but also convivencia, if we don't use the hyphen, without the hyphen, which in Spanish is the Spanish term for cohabitation somehow, right? So the two men in Rivalta's work coexist, indeed, under the mandate of national, ideological, political, and socioeconomic transformations. We have black and white Cubans inactive, that are here portrayed inactive and in the loneliness of a sunny park. And the scene suggests also experience, continuing through history to present day. So the thing is that you might see in the back all those billboards that, of course, are not in the, can you see it there? Yeah. That, of course, weren't in the original picture in the 1930s. So we have a picture from a billboard from Coca-Cola, and the second one is a revolutionary billboard that says something like, Ser Revolución. I cannot read the rest. Here we have a billboard with the image of Jose Marti and the Cuban flag, etc. So she is bringing to the present all these elements. And then I want finally to discuss, okay, so if I can, somehow I will allow, yes, to discuss the work of the young Cuban artist, Susana Pilar Delahante Matienzo, which is here in a performance, it's the one sitting. Okay, so this performance called The Tank, in this performance, the artist allows the public to see how her hair is being relaxed under the pressure of a heated iron comb. This is a very painful and dangerous process, and in this performance, the spectator might sense that. Why? Because the public in this, actually, this performance was the first time she did it was in the Cuban Biennial in 2015. In Havana Cuban Biennial in 2015. And there the public was able to feel also the fear in the person whose hair is being relaxed. You see her here, right? You can also you can smell in the air the smell of the burned hair, and we have also. We should also remember that this is supposed to be a private scene, because most women, in general, do not show themselves in the process of changing our appearance, especially our hair, and even less, in the case of Black women, of relaxing it. It is supposed to look naturally relaxed, if that exists. Which means, because showing it means that those Black women originally had kinky hair, like mine now, the so-called bad hair, which is associated with blackness and backwardness also. But here the artist is exposing it. And to close the performance, here, it happens what we have here. To close the performance, Susana throws a bucket of water over her head, which destroys all the previous work, bringing back the relaxed heart to the natural state. Also, in that 2015 Havana Art Biennial, Susana organized an Afro hair contest that I think it remains until today, with a large influx of public and even publicized it in the official Cuban press. This contest, Afro-Cuban contest, was called Lo Llevamos Rizo, we wear it curly, and has been, to my knowledge, the very first time in which Black beauty has been publicly celebrated in Cuba, to my knowledge. And this is highly significant, not only for the women that participated in the contest and felt recognized for who they really are, but for all Black Cuban women. And here I want to talk about another element that on my book, another concept, which is epistemological marronage. And I coined this term to conceptualize the agency of Afro-descendants when we unshackle ourselves from the forms of identification and worldviews sustaining our oppression and advance new existential possibilities. Derived from the notion of marronage, of course, the traditional marronage, as the enslaved's main form of resistance and self-liberation, generally by fleeing the master's domains, I, however, seek to emphasize how, through marronage, the dispossessed subject recovers her power over her body, space, and time. My claim is that as the fugitive slave ceased being a commodity caught in a hetero-patriarchally dominated world and became a human being free to reinvent herself in the wilderness, it is only by fleeing what can be considered the epistemological plantation that Black women shed the otherness foisted upon us. That wilderness, the uncharted territory of our existence where we can finally find freedom, is within ourselves. For the true account of ourselves is not to be found outside of our bodies and minds. So epistemological marronage, on my sense, answers that call from other law to create new forms of resistance. And my perspective also challenges the most common approaches of marronage. I argue that by overwhelmingly relying on the idea of fugitivity, these approaches overlook the maroon's capacity for self-identification and self-governance. When the Maroon's liberatory agency is seen as a mere response escaping to the colonial hegemonic structures, it remains subject to the enslaver's system, and it is still related to the Eurocentric order. In my opinion, the accounts of marronage that are centered on the escaping act disregard the maroon's fundamental power. They minimize the fact that outside of the plantation, self-liberated persons terminate not only enslavement, but also their identification as Blacks. For Blackness is instrumental only within the system that purposely creates and recreates it as an identity. Shackles are thus broken in both the natural and the epistemological wilderness, where, as self-empowered refugees from physical and mental bondage, we build new understandings of ourselves and the world. In my concept of epistemological marronage, Black agency prevails over fugitivity. And so I want to close with this imagen cimarrona, this maroon image, expressing by itself this counter-hegemonic agency. So I will leave you with the beautiful, hypersexualized, and powerful Flor Elena. Here, oops. Okay, I like that. Yeah, the center. Yeah. Flor Elena is she's a monster in a sense, in the sense that she escapes the strategies of domination and invents her own character. And the ways in which she acts, also she invents the way she acts and exerts her power. I will explain why. Flor Elena is Susana Pilar Delahante Matienzo, the artist's avatar in the virtual game Second Life. Do you remember Second Life? Great, good. So she's a virtual, in Second Life, she's a virtual dominatrix, yes, she's virtual dominatrix. And actually, and she was presented, introduced to the public, actually, in this piece, Dominadora en Material, presented in the Venice Biennial in 2015 also. And actually, there were Flor Elena's virtual slaves, don't forget that she's a dominatrix, who paid via Second Life the artist, Susana Pilar, trip to Venice. How's that? So Flor Elena, a virtual character, is far from being that commodity portrayed of that. Okay, I'm lost. It's far from being that commonly portrayed Black woman cast as the powerless object of a seemingly unavoidable, oppression. Much to the contrary, Flor Elena's erotic enslaving powers enable her Black creator, her Black author, to make effective her very own agency in the real world. She went to Venice, okay? So Susana Pilar Delahante Matienzo, as well as other Black Cuban artists studied in this, my book, many others and many more works, have also used Afro-descendant maroon strategies. These are, these are powerful ethical aesthetic strategies through which Black women enact the fugue, of course, emancipating the narratives, consequently situating their experience beyond the scope of hegemonic epistemologies, making themselves shine somewhere into the wilderness. Thank you so much for your patience.